Young Scrooge, A Very Scary Christmas Story by R.L. Stine. Part 2. Chapter 7. Mr. Martin beckoned me into the inner office with his pointer finger. He doesn't talk much. He's usually quiet and serious. He watches everyone pass by his office through his square-shaped eyeglasses that make his eyes look as big as tennis balls. But he never says hi, or good morning, or what's up. Everything about him is serious and quiet. He wears gray suits every day with black or gray ties. His short brown hair is brushed straight back. He smiles sometimes, but I've never seen him laugh. When he talks to you, you have to lean forward. His voice is so soft, his words seem to dribble down his chin. He pointed at a chair at the end of the table across from his desk. I sat down in front of a laptop computer. He pulled out the chair next to me and sat down. "I can explain about the ants," I said. "It was a total accident." Okay, a little white lie. "I don't want to talk about the ants," he said. I could smell coffee on his breath, kinda sour. His tennis ball eyes stared into mine. "I want to show you a movie, Rick." "A movie?" He started tapping keys on the laptop keyboard. "This is a movie about a boy named Phil. This movie is going to be shown in schools all over this country because it's about bullying. Do you know what a bully is, Rick?" I shrugged. "I guess." "Well, I think you'll recognize what a bully is when you see Phil," he said. A dark screen came up and he clicked play. "The film is pretty short. When it's over, you and I will have a talk about it." He picked some papers off his desk and left the room. I rested my head in my hands and gazed at the laptop screen as the movie began. I was feeling pretty good. I expected a long lecture about why I shouldn't put ants in kids' costumes and how I ruined the Christmas play. But instead, I got to watch a movie. It was fun, too. The movie was called Phil's Story. This guy Phil looked about my age, and like me, he was the biggest kid in his class. He was loud and funny. In the first scene, he is in the lunchroom. He tries to take a girl's sandwich. When she grabs it back, he tips a whole carton of chocolate milk over her head. She leaves the room screaming and crying. She's your typical bad sport. Phil goes out on the playground. He takes a frisbee away from a bunch of little kids and throws it down a sewer. The little kids get all crazy and upset and start crying. They can't take a joke. A boy and a girl are doing homework together, standing against the wall. Phil sneaks up behind the boy and pulls his pants down. The boy is so embarrassed he runs away. Then Phil trips a girl carrying a birthday cake to the lunchroom. She falls on top of the cake and crushes it beneath her. This is a comedy, I thought. Why is Mr. Martin showing me a comedy? Back in school, Phil takes a girl's homework paper away from her. He crosses out her name and puts his name at the top. Then he hands it in to the teacher. Very clever. He presses his finger over one nostril, then blows his nose in a girl's hair. Then he pours a box of grape juice into a boy's backpack. In the last scene, Phil is taken to the principal's office. The principal is this older woman with a stern expression. She sits him down in front of a laptop, and she shows him a movie. It's called Phil's Story. The movie ended. I gazed up and found Mr. Martin standing behind me. He pulled out a chair and sat across from me. "Rick, do you understand now why we are showing this movie to certain kids across the country?" "Not really," I said. My answer made him blink. He clasped his hands together on the tabletop. "Well, do you understand about Phil? Why he has no friends? Why he is so unhappy and alone?" "Not really," I said. "Phil looked pretty happy to me." Mr. Martin made a choking sound. He blinked a few times. He pushed his glasses up on his nose. "Well, let me ask you this, Rick," he said in his soft, quiet voice. "What is your opinion of Phil? What do you think of him?" "He's awesome," I said. "I think he's way cool. I mean, he's the star of his own movie, isn't he? That's totally cool." Mr. Martin swept a hand back over his short hair. Behind his thick glasses, his eyes went dead. He had no expression on his face at all. He suddenly looked to me like a balloon the air had all gone out of. He sighed. "Is there anything about Phil that you would change?" he asked. "Think about it before you answer, please." "That striped shirt he wore was kinda lame," I said. "I guess I'd change his shirt." "You wouldn't change anything about Phil's behavior?" Mr. Martin raised his voice for the first time. His gray cheeks turned rosy pink. "Not really," I said. "You know the costumes for the Christmas play have to be sent to the cleaners now. They won't come back in time. You've ruined the Christmas play for everyone, Rick. How does that make you feel?" "No big thing. It was kinda funny," I said. "Just a joke, you know." He sighed. I think I'm going to have to give up on you, Rick. I'll have to speak with your mother. He made a waving motion toward the office door. You can go home now. Thank you, Mr. Martin, I said. I climbed to my feet. And thanks for showing me that movie. Please think about Phil later, he called after me. Think about how Phil should change his behavior. No problem, I said. I stepped out into the empty hall. I could hear the kids from the play in the auditorium down the hall. They sounded angry and upset. I started to the front doors. I pictured them all scratching and squirming with ants crawling up and down their skin. It made me chuckle. I didn't realize it was the last time I'd ever see my friends, the last time I'd see Mr. Martin, the last time I'd ever see my school. As I started to walk home that afternoon, I had no way of knowing that my life was about to change, and the terror would soon begin. Chapter 8. Rick, can you help me? Charlie greeted me as I came through the kitchen door. I dropped my backpack on the floor. Then I grabbed both of his ears and tugged them as hard as I could. Charlie has huge ears that stick out like side view mirrors on a car. I just can't resist them. Ow, that hurt. Charlie backed away from me. Man up, I said. Mom stood at the sink peeling carrots. She turned around. Don't pull on your brother's ears, Rick. We don't want to make them any bigger. How many times do I have to tell you? 500, I said. So, will you help me? Charlie waved a big sheet of paper in my face. I need help with my drawing. Go help Charlie, Mom said. Dinner won't be ready for another hour. She squinted at me. How come you're late? You didn't get in trouble again, did you? I shook my head. No, there was a big insect problem at the Christmas play rehearsal, I said. Of course, I didn't tell her that I caused the problem. Charlie grabbed my hand and tugged me to his room. He has an awesome room. Big posters of Thor, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, and Spider-Man cover the walls. Charlie is into superheroes, and he likes to draw them. The kid has talent. Maybe he'll be a cartoonist someday. He pulled me to his table and pushed a black marker into my hand. I'm having trouble drawing a squirrel, he said. Huh? I stared hard at him. You draw superheroes all the time. You can't draw a simple squirrel. It's for art class, he said. I'm going to get a grade on it, and I don't know where to start. Start with a nut, I said. Draw a nut, then draw a squirrel grabbing the nut. He shoved my shoulder. Don't be funny, Rick. It has to be good. He pushed my hand toward the paper. Go ahead. Start it for me. You start it and I'll finish it. Okay. I leaned over the paper, pulled the cover off the marker, and started to draw. Hey, you're dumb, he cried. You didn't draw a squirrel. You drew a house. I know, I said. The squirrel is inside the house. I walked out of his room, laughing my head off. Mom stepped into the hall, brushing her hair back with both hands. I have to go to the store, she said. I forgot the chicken broth. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Watch Charlie, okay? She didn't wait for an answer. She turned, grabbed her purse, and hurried out the back door. Perfect. I was hoping she would leave for a while, because it was time for one of my important Christmas traditions. I was already having a fun Christmas season. On Sunday, a group of kids from the high school walked onto our front yard and started singing Christmas carols. They could not believe the barrage of snowballs that I heaved at them as they tried to sing. It was a total riot. Now it was time for another holiday tradition of mine. This is my special tradition where I find where my Christmas presents are hidden, and I check them out before Mom gives them to me. Why take chances? In case she messed up, I can give her some new hints about what I need her to buy me. What could be more important at holiday time than getting all the presents I asked for, especially since it was my birthday too. This year I knew where the presents were hidden, in the big closet up in the attic. Through the front window, I saw Mom's car speed off. I peeked into Charlie's room to check on him. He was hunched over his squirrel drawing, humming to himself as he drew. So I crept to the back stairs and climbed to the attic. The wooden stairs were steep and creaky. The air got hot as I stepped into the attic. It smelled kind of stale up here. I had to duck my head because the attic ceiling is very low. Gray evening light washed in from the one small window at the other end of the long room. I unlatched the closet door and pulled it open. A whoosh of hot air greeted me. I fumbled for the light switch and clicked on the single light bulb that hung on a cord from the low closet ceiling. There they were, 2 piles of Christmas presents stacked against the back wall, one for Charlie and one for me, already neatly wrapped in shiny red and green and silver paper. I walked over to them and counted. 8 presents for me, 6 for Charlie. Not bad. But the big question was, did I get the PlayStation games I wanted? Or did Mom blow it and buy me baby games again this year? Or Xbox games that don't work on my player? I had to find out. I grabbed the present on top of my pile and ripped open the wrapping. Yes, one of the games I asked for. I tore off the wrapping on the next present. Oh wow, a gross ugly sweater. What is her problem? I told her not to buy me clothes. I tossed the sweater to the floor and grabbed the next present. I realized I was sweating. Was it that hot in the closet? Or was I just excited about seeing my presents? I tore off the wrapping. Handkerchiefs? Huh? A whole bunch of handkerchiefs. Was she out of her mind? The next present was just as lame. A hairbrush. Yuck. Mom was totally blowing it this year. I unwrapped the next one on the pile. Whoa, a Christmas Carol songbook? Kill me now. Worst presents ever. The others were a little better. I finished checking them out, then I rewrapped them quickly. Too bad that I was so eager, I ripped a lot of the paper. I started in on Charlie's presents next. I had to make sure that he didn't get anything that I wanted for myself. I was about halfway through his presents, looking at a paint set the little kid was sure to go nuts over. Ha, another ugly sweater. He'll hate it. I stopped when I heard a sound. A creak, a quiet squeak. I glanced up in time to see the closet door start to swing closed. Hey, I called out. Who's there? Charlie? Is that you? The door shut with a hard slam. I heard a click, the latch on the other side of the door. Hey, I called out again. I dropped the sweater to the floor and lurched to the closet door. I gave it a hard push. It wouldn't budge. I pushed again. Again. Oh wow, I was locked in. Charlie, open up, I shouted. You're not funny. Open the door if you don't want to get pounded. Silence. You're dead meat, Charlie, I screamed. Open this door. Charlie! I pressed my ear against the closet door and listened. Silent out there. No creaks. No footsteps. No one breathing hard. He wasn't there. I was trapped in the closet. My heart was pounding now. Drops of sweat dripped down my forehead and cheeks. I tried the door again. No, I couldn't move it. Then the light bulb went out, and it got really scary. Chapter 9. I froze there with my shoulder against the closet door. I blinked in the deep darkness. Whoa, I muttered to myself. The closet suddenly felt hotter, as if someone had turned up the heat. I sucked in a deep breath and the air burned my throat. Locked in a pitch-black closet, and no one knew I was up here. I mopped sweat off my forehead with one arm. My hair was wet and sweaty. I made a wheezing sound as I sucked in another breath. No air in here, I thought. It's getting hard to breathe. That thought sent a chill of panic shooting down my body. I reached for the light switch, clicked it several times. No light. The bulb was definitely burned out. Should I call for help? Will Charlie hear me downstairs? It was worth a try. I opened my mouth to shout, but I stopped when I saw an eerie green-yellow mist swirling at the other end of the closet. I uttered a sharp gasp. It looked like a cloud. It curled in on itself like a snake. I stared without breathing, without moving as the mist curled and uncurled, up to the closet ceiling, then down again, floating closer, closer to me. Was it going to wrap itself around me? A small cry escaped my throat. The mist grew brighter. The green faded as the yellow flamed. Sparks spit out from the swirling serpent of fog. What is happening? I choked out in a whisper. The air suddenly felt cold, cold and heavy, and wet. The mist rose up in front of me. It formed a glowing yellow wall, so bright I had to shut my eyes. I was shivering now, shivering from the cold and from my fear. And when I opened my eyes, I found myself staring at a face. A pale yellow face. An old man's face, with scraggly white hairs on a craggy bald head, white whiskers down both cheeks. His nose came to a sharp point. His eyes glowed like red burning coals. He wore a gray nightshirt down to his knees. It hung loosely on his thin body. I couldn't look away from the glowing red eyes. They held me as if I were hypnotized. And then I suddenly realized what had happened. I had fallen asleep. I had drifted off to sleep, and now I was having a nightmare. Am I dreaming this? The words escaped my throat in a hoarse, trembling voice. Can I wake up now? You are not dreaming, the old man replied. The words sounded as if they were coming from somewhere far away, not from this glowing yellow figure in front of me. I swallowed. My mouth was as dry as sandpaper. I started to shake. I told you, there's only one thing in this world that I'm afraid of, and that's ghosts. And now I knew I was staring at a ghost. I was locked in this closet with a terrifying ghost. Who are you? I cried in a tiny voice. Don't you recognize me? He boomed. The bright pulsing light billowed around him. No, I stammered. Why should I recognize you? A wave of heat washed over me. The old ghost's eyes bulged. I'm Marley's ghost, he shouted, his voice echoing in the tiny closet. My mouth dropped open. Huh? His eyes narrowed on me angrily. I'm Marley's ghost. I've come to warn you, William Delaney. Whoa! I raised both hands, signaling him to back off. My brain spun with confusion. William Delaney? I choked out. The old ghost raised a bony finger and pointed. You are William Delaney. Don't try to escape your fate, William. You cannot run from your doom. But, I sputtered. I'm not William Delaney. I'm Rick Scroogeman. A flash of light made me blink. The ghost appeared to fade for a moment. He slipped back in the darkness of the closet until he appeared dim and small. Scroogeman, he said. You're telling the truth? I let out a long, shuddering breath. The Delaneys live across the street, I said. The red brick house on the corner. You got the wrong house. Marley's ghost nodded slowly. His eyes appeared to sink deep in their sockets. A low hum came from deep in his chest. Sorry about that, he said. He turned to the wall. I'll be gone now. I have to haunt William Delaney. Wait, I said. Before you go, could you do me a favor? Could you open the closet door for me and let me out? He had nearly disappeared. Only his face and one hand remained, floating in front of me. He floated closer, his ghostly face just inches away. You won't help me? He didn't answer. He lowered his head and began to vanish through the wall. Don't let the door hit you on your way out, I said. He was gone. Marley's ghost was gone. I sat there, still shaking, staring at the glowing darkness where he had floated. Then the darkness exploded into bursting red and yellow lights, and from the flash of light came a deep voice. I've come for you, Scroogeman. I've come for you now. Chapter 10. The bright colors faded. Blinking hard, I waited for my eyes to adjust to the dim light, and stared at a hooded figure. His long gray robe reached the floor, covering his whole body. It billowed like drapes at an open window, and I heard a sound like rushing wind. I couldn't see his face. It was hidden under the hood. I've come for you, Scroogeman, he repeated in his deep bass drum of a voice. He turned toward me, and I could see into the hood. I saw only blackness in there. No face. No face at all. Go away, I stammered. You have the wrong guy. You want Delaney across the street. I want you, the ghost boomed. And again I heard the wind, as if a storm had blown up inside his empty hood. What do you want? I choked out. This isn't Halloween. You're too late for the costume contest. The wind became a roar, like a powerful burst of thunder. I fell back against the closet wall. My whole body shuddered. I am the ghost of Christmas past, the hooded figure screamed. You don't have to shout. I can hear you, I said, rubbing my throbbing ears. I stared into the hood, into the solid blackness. I am the ghost of Christmas past, he repeated, a little softer. And I'm the Easter Bunny, I said. I don't know where I got the courage, but my fear turned quickly to anger. Get out of my closet. Let me go. The ghost floated over me. You'd better act more scared, he warned. I really am a ghost. And now I started to shudder. Sitting on the floor with my legs outstretched, my knees began to knock. I couldn't stop them. I told you before, I've been afraid of ghosts my whole life. Ghosts are the only thing I'm afraid of. And now, here I was, locked in the attic closet, storm winds blowing, and a headless, hooded ghost come to haunt me. What do you want? Where are you taking me? I cried, but he didn't answer my question. Scroogeman, you have ruined Christmas for the kids in the school play, he said. You have frightened your classmates and made their lives unhappy, And now you have ruined Christmas for your mother and your brother by tearing up all the presents. An invisible hand clamped onto my shoulder. I couldn't see it, but it felt wet and cold. Come with me. I'm going to take you where you can see the error of your ways. He tightened his hold on me until I gasped in pain. Is this like the movie? I cried. That gross Christmas movie? It isn't a movie, he boomed, his voice rattling the closet door. This is real, Scroogeman. The wind picked up again. It quickly grew to a roar, and then a deafening explosion rocked the closet. I covered both ears with my hands as the blast sent me flying off the floor, flying into a deep blackness. I could still feel the bone-hard grip of the ghost invisible hand pulling me. I couldn't see him. I couldn't see anything, but I felt him pulling me away, away from the closet, away from my home, pulling me away. Chapter 11. I shut my eyes tight. Swirling winds howled around me. I heard voices moaning as if in pain. I heard loud sobs. Someone groaned. Help me. Help me. The cries made me open my eyes. No one there. I was still being pulled through total darkness. The skin tightened on my face. I couldn't breathe. The wind was smothering me. Was that me screaming, wailing at the top of my lungs without stop? My cries echoed as if I were in a huge cave. And then, I was on a street corner. The hooded ghost stood beside me, still squeezing my hand in his icy grip. Too dizzy to stand, I slumped onto my knees. My head felt like a spinning top. The ground tilted and swayed. Finally, I felt a little stronger. My heart pounding, I climbed to my feet. I was suddenly wearing a heavy overcoat and a fur hat I'd never seen before. I gazed around. A tall dappled horse clopped past, pulling a small wooden carriage. No cars on the street. 2 men walked past, wearing long black overcoats and wide-brimmed hats pulled down low over their heads. They stepped over snowdrifts, their leather boots nearly up to their knees. One of them carried a slender silver walking stick. He gestured with it in the air as he talked. 2 men on horseback trotted past, and then another horse-drawn carriage. Where am I? I demanded. My voice came out faint and shrill, like a whistle. Is this the past or something? The ghost nodded. You got that right. 2 women wearing big gray bonnets and fur-collared coats over long pleated skirts walked past. One of them walked right through the ghost. That sent a chill down my back. He wasn't kidding about the ghost part. That meant I'd been kidnapped. Kidnapped by a crazy invisible ghost and taken who knows where. Were there police here? Could I report him to the police? Can you report a ghost to the police? I suddenly thought about Charlie. Mom was at the store. He was home all alone. What if I couldn't get back home? Did that mean he'd get all my presents too? No way I'd let that happen. I tugged my hand free from the ghost's cold grip. You have to take me home, I said. No, I don't, he said. I have taken you far from your home, to a distant time, before you were born. But my mom will be waiting. Your mother hasn't even been born yet, he said. Scroogeman, I brought you back to the distant past to show you a lot of things. You ruined Christmas for a lot of people. Now you need to learn the real meaning of the holiday. But I already know that, I protested. What do you think I was doing in that attic closet? I was discovering what's important about Christmas. My presents. He shook his head. 2 tall, dark-hatted men in long overcoats walked past, both rubbing their beards and talking at once. One of them walked through the ghost as if he were made of air. The ghost didn't seem to mind. I'm the only one who can see him, I realized. No way I could report him to the police. Why did you do this to me? I stammered. Why did you bring me so far back in the past? He lowered his hood close to my face. I could still see only darkness inside. Because I knew you wouldn't like it, he whispered. The answer sent a chill down my back. But in the movie, the ghost of Christmas past makes Scrooge revisit his childhood, I said. This isn't a movie, he snapped. You have many lessons to learn, Scroogeman. You need to learn how to treat the people you know. Have you ever heard of the golden rule? Sure, I said. Do it to others before they do it to you. He remained silent for a long time. Okay, he said finally. The gray hood bobbed up and down. Okay, that's the golden rule. I have brought you back in time to a place where they practice your golden rule. Good, I said. My head was spinning. I didn't really know how to reply. Do it to others before they do it to you, the ghost repeated. Let's see how you like that, Scroogeman. The long robe swirled around him as he turned away from me. He floated into the street as a horse and carriage clattered by. Hey, wait, I called. Where are you going? You can't just leave me here. He turned, and again I saw the empty blackness inside the hood. Time for you to start school, Scroogeman. Follow me. Chapter 12. Everything went black. When I could see again, we were standing in a dimly lit hall. Torches along the wooden wall provided a flickering light. Christmas wreaths were hung at the windows. Weird-looking, old-fashioned type kids, carrying leather book bags by their straps, strode past us. This is your new school, Scroogeman, the ghost of Christmas past said. The Bleak Academy. I stared at the kids walking past. Some of the boys must have been farmers. They wore dark denim overalls to school, flannel shirts and bib overalls with straps like suspenders. Totally weird. The girls had their hair down to their shoulders, tied back in colored ribbons. They all wore long skirts, gray or black. They came down to their heavy leather shoes. Everyone talked quietly, like they were afraid to make any noise. The loudest sound was the clump of their heavy shoes on the wooden floor. I don't want to go to this weirdo school. I want to go to my own school, I told the ghost. Your mean nature has brought you here, Scrooge, the ghost said. His robe shimmered in the flickering torchlight. Let's see how you enjoy being in a school where everyone treats you the way you treat others. Mean nature? Who says I'm mean? Tell me, who said it? I'll punch his lights out. He didn't reply. Take me home, I demanded. I don't belong here. I grabbed for his arm, but my hand went right through the sleeve of his robe. You can't do this to me. I'm not going to move until you take me home. Do you hear me? Good luck in your new school, Scroogeman, he said softly. You'll need it. Then he vanished in an explosion of cold air, and I was left standing there in that dark hall, in my jeans and blue polo shirt, the only kid not dressed in gray or black, the only guy in the school with short hair, the only guy here who didn't know anyone at all. I don't belong here! I wanted to scream at the top of my lungs. Would anyone care? A tall, skinny boy in a wrinkled gray shirt, tucked into his overalls, stepped beside me. He swept back the straight brown hair that had fallen over his forehead. He had little brown eyes and a long nose that came almost down to his lips. He looked a lot like a bird. If I'd been back home, I'd have offered him a worm. He squinted at me for a long moment. Are you the new boy? I nodded. I guess. You're Scroogeman? He asked, still studying me. I nodded again. I guess. I'm Benjamin Cook, he said. Mr. Dulwich asked me to watch for you. Who's Mr. Dulwich? I asked. Our teacher, he said. He squeezed the sleeve of my polo shirt. Your shirt is the color of the sky, he said softly. So what? I said. Did your mother dye it that color when she wove it for you? He asked. I started to tell him my mom bought it at Walmart, but another boy walked up to us. He was big and red-faced and blond and bounced as he walked. He had a black tie knotted at the stiff white collar of his white dress shirt. He grinned at me. New boy? Watch out for Prescott, Benjamin whispered in my ear. He took a step back. Yeah, I'm new, I said. You're Prescott? We don't like new kids. I already don't like you, he said. Why are you wearing a circus costume? Why are you wearing that? I said, pointing to his heavy brown suit jacket and vest. Do you have a monkey at home waiting to get his suit back? I thought it was pretty funny, but Benjamin and Prescott didn't laugh. Prescott's face turned red, and he clenched his fist. No one makes a monkey out of me, he said through gritted teeth. I decided I'd better not get him steamed. It was my first day after all. I was making a joke, I said. Your mother made a joke, Prescott said. I'm staring at it. Benjamin laughed at that one. I decided to play it cool. I didn't say anything about his mother. Some kids had gathered across the hall to watch us. I spotted a very hot-looking girl with long wavy blonde hair down the back of her gray dress. I flashed her a thumbs up. She turned her head away. What are those? Prescott asked. Why are you wearing cloth on your feet? Are you an elf who lives in the forest? Those are Air Jordans, I said. He scowled at me. Elf Jordans? You think you're a forest elf? No, Air Jordans, I repeated. What kind of cobbler would make shoes out of cloth? Prescott asked Benjamin. Benjamin shrugged. Maybe a blind cobbler. They both thought that was a riot. They tossed back their heads and laughed. That's not funny, I said. These sneakers cost my mom a lot of money. I'll show you what's funny, Prescott said, winking at Benjamin. Let me test those elf shoes. He raised his big boot and tromped his heel down as hard as he could on the top of my right sneaker. I let out a howl of pain. That's funny, Prescott exclaimed. He slammed his heel down hard again on the same spot. I see what you're doing, I choked out as pain shot up my leg, up my entire body. You're giving me a dance lesson. The pain was unbearable. I shut my eyes and started to dance. Chapter 13. Mr. Dulwich was tall and skinny as a spaghetti noodle. He had straight black hair parted in the middle of his head, and he wore round eyeglasses perched on the end of his long nose. His shirt collar was stiff and stuck out like wings. It wasn't even attached to his starched white shirt. A black string tie hung down from his neck. His suit was black, the jacket was tight against his waist, and the pants were baggy. I'm not the one dressed like a clown, I thought. Put a red nose on Mr. Dulwich, and he could perform in any circus. He greeted me with a short hello. Then, with the wave of his hand, he sent me to an empty desk chair at the back of the room. I had to squeeze into it. The chair was pretty small. I turned and saw the blonde girl from the hall sitting next to me. She had awesome blue-gray eyes and a few freckles on her cheeks. She didn't say hello or anything. She was busy arranging black pencils in a wooden pencil box. Hey, I said. How's it going? She finally looked at me. How's what going? She asked. I flashed her my best smile. How are you doing? How am I doing what? She demanded. Just saying hi, I said. What's your name? She tossed back her hair. Emily Ann. May I ask a question? Why are you wearing such funny clothes? Because I came from the future, I said. She laughed and turned back to her pencil box. We have a new student in class, Mr. Dulwich announced. He stood at the front of the room, leaning on an enormous globe of the world. Stand up and introduce yourself, he said, motioning to me with both hands. It took a struggle to climb up from the little desk chair. I'm Rick Scroogeman, I said. Rick Stoogeman, I heard a boy in the front row say. I recognized him. Prescott. Most everyone laughed. Then they began to chant, Stoogeman, Stoogeman, Stoogeman. Dulwich raised both hands to get them quiet. And where do you come from, Rick? He asked. Rockford, I said. It's a little town in Illinois. He squinted at me. Indian country? You come to us from Indian country? That's why he's wearing moccasins, Benjamin chimed in. He's an Indian from the Stoogeman tribe, Prescott declared. Then they started to chant again. Stoogeman, Stoogeman, Stoogeman. How annoying is that? Next to me, Emily Ann was chanting louder than anyone and laughing, enjoying it too much. On an impulse, I grabbed the back of her hair and gave it a tug. You know, playful, not too hard. Her eyes went wide in surprise. Then she opened the lid on her desk, pulled out a small black bottle, and emptied it over my head. It didn't take me long to realize it was black ink. It oozed down my hair and down both sides of my face. That stopped the chanting. Everyone turned to stare. Mr. Dulwich came striding down the aisle and stopped in front of Emily Ann's desk. That is no way to treat a new student, he scolded her. But it was an accident, she cried. My hand slipped, sir. A lot of kids laughed. I felt like a total jerk, sitting there with black ink running down my hair and face. But I was impressed with Emily Ann. She was a good liar, maybe as good as me. Mr. Scroogeman, you will find some towels in the housekeeping cupboard, Dulwich said. Dry yourself as best you can. The rest of the class, take out your chapbooks. We shall have some quiet reading. Don't you mean chapstick? I said. He frowned at me. Was that meant to be a joke? I'm sure I don't understand it. The other kids were pulling these little books from their desks. The books didn't seem to have covers, just pages. I climbed out of the tiny desk chair and started up the aisle to the classroom door. The ink smelled sour, and I could feel it drying in my hair. I wondered where the boys' room was. Maybe this horrible school didn't even have one. I was nearly to the front of the room when Prescott stuck his foot out and tripped me. I stumbled into the big globe, landed on top of it, and the globe and I rolled across the floor. I finally managed to climb to my feet, and I set the globe back on its wooden stand. The whole class was howling with laughter. Prescott was laughing louder than anyone. He stared at me as if challenging me. challenging me to a fight? I ignored them all and made my way into the narrow, dimly lit hall in search of the cupboard with the towels. I knew what was going on here. I knew it was payback time for me. That hooded ghost wanted to teach me a lesson. He knew my new classmates would play the same kind of jokes on me that I play on others. I got it. I'm not stupid. The question was, what was I going to do about it? The answer came to me instantly. I was going to tell the truth to these kids, explain to them who I really am, and ask them to help me get out of here.